Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. I'm talking with Kristan Hawkins, President of Students for Life. She is a noteworthy contributor and commentator on the social media sphere as well. And so no stranger to many of you listening right now. Kristan, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thanks for having me again.
So we are at Catholics at the Shore and really blessed to have your involvement here. Like you, everyone who's involved in this program knows that your faith cannot be an isolated personal thing. It has to transform the culture. It has to reshape the common good. Mm-hmm. So starting with that generic premise in your talk, just share your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually the crux of my talk today, because it was about going out and lighting your candle in the darkness. I mean, I think what we're seeing, especially on college and high school campuses with this youth generation, is this darkness that's taken hold of a generation that has largely rejected and does not believe in the God who spoke the universe into existence. And when you reject God, as humans who are made to worship, you worship something else. Mm-hmm. And you worship a lowercase g God, right? A God of political power, some ideology, but most likely it's the God of self. And that's what we see, underlying the choice, the decision for abortion, right? Is this worshiping of the God of self, thinking another person and another vulnerable, innocent person must die in order for me to achieve my life dreams or my life goals. And so how do you extinguish darkness? Well, every one of us who's called to carry our cross is called to be that witness for Jesus Christ, for his sacred heart, his heart is broken for this generation, for the vulnerable, and that's taking your candle and lighting up darkness. And, it's so cool about candles is it doesn't have to be a big candle. It could be a little votive candle. It doesn't have to have some fancy stick, or a brass holder. It can be whatever candle you have, whatever darkness you can enter, you will extinguish darkness. Darkness will have no choice but to flee, and your light will not be dimmed.
Your primary way in which you shine a light into this darkness is by means of tackling the evil of abortion head on, and God bless you for that. Abortion, just to borrow from your trajectory of thought here, perverts the Christian gospel. Christ says, "This is my body given up for you," and the narrative of the abortion industry is, "This is my body, do whatever I want." Can you talk about that perversion and how Satan does that?
Peter Kreeft articulated that so well of, this is my body given up for you. And then he comes to abortion. It's, this is my body and you will die for it, right? And that's what I've been touring on college campuses with this semester. I just wrapped up my spring tour. It was called Abortion is Human Sacrifice. And I always have to do something a little eye-catchy because I got to get the kids to take the earpods out of their ears and want to talk. And, the students are going, what do you mean by that? Like, how dare you say that? And I would break it down for them very simple of, we're made as humans to worship, right? In every civilization that practiced human sacrifice, there was a God, there was an angry God, a God they feared. There was a vulnerable group of people who they might call people, but would see as less than equal to human rights than they were. There was a crisis there, right? So they look at the most recent civilization to practice human sacrifice, the Aztecs, right? Worship the sun god. Sun's not coming out. Oh my gosh, the crops aren't growing. There's going to be mass starvation. All these people are going to die. We have to kill more people, right? And so then there's this justification that harming this innocent, vulnerable group of people produces something better for society. I've just explained to you how abortions are justified today because we worship the God of self. My God is angry. My God is in crisis. There's a vulnerable group that maybe I might see as valuable if a mom wants to have the baby. I'll say maybe it's a baby, but if I don't, it's not a baby. And then I can justify paying an abortionist or putting my credit card in online to get chemical abortion pills to kill my child. Abortion is flat out human sacrifice. It's the opposite of the sacrifice that Christ gave us.
And like we know from human history, not just the Aztecs as the most recent, but even the entire Germanic history, the history of early Europe, it never stops with a certain horror of initial sacrifice. Sure. The bloodthirstiness increases and the reverence for human life increases.
That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what you see today, right, with Planned Parenthood, the leading abortionists in our country. Now they're the leading, distributor of wrong sex hormones that are sterilizing our young people, right? I'm sure Planned Parenthood is involved in the conversations and the coalitions that they're bringing in states to promote euthanasia and assisted suicide. That'll be, I mean, with them being defunded for the past year, they've been selling Botox. So I'm probably even shouldn't say it, might give an idea, but what's to stop them from start administering assisted suicide drugs, right? That's what they are doing. They're an industry that's set up to kill and to profit from despair, to profit from suffering. And so you're absolutely right, Marcus. It's just going to continue on. And that's what abortion is done. I find it sometimes so interesting where people get, especially Christians, are like, oh, another abortion talk, another pro-life speaker. Haven't we? I spoke at a Lagos chapter one time, and they were like, oh, we already had one of you this year. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. We only let one pro-life speaker a year. And I'm like, this is the issue, because it's, the left practices intersectionalism. If you want to talk about intersectionalism, it all comes back to, we don't see the vulnerable child in the womb as human and worthy of sacrifice. And if we're willing to kill that child, we're willing to do a lot more.
I don't like overplaying the black card, because I'm Catholic first. I'm a son of God first. But I'm going to be the first to admit, and I've done this in talks, and people balk when I say this, but everyone thinks that racism is the great evil of our age. And I tell them the number one thing that's killing minorities right now is actually the entire abortion industry. And it's not just in the U.S. I've lived in 6 countries. I can tell you this is a ubiquitous global problem. And so like you've been mentioning right now, this isn't an issue amongst many for morality. This is the great heinous attack on human dignity of our age. Just share your thoughts there.
No, it absolutely is. And until you get this issue right, until we reverse this contamination, this stain upon our culture, many other things are not going to get better. Because if you can kill a baby, you can easily be racist in your tweets, right? Like, you've already dehumanized the other. When you talk about, the political divide in our country, and sometimes I'm at, a Catholic conference and people will be lamenting the political divide. I'm like, well, it's not going to get better until you stop killing a baby. Because if you can kill a baby, you can easily call your neighbor who votes for the other political party scum and a racist and say they shouldn't have the right to speak out. Nazi, whatever word, whatever political persuasion you're in, it becomes really easy to start calling other people cockroaches and have neighbors turning on other neighbors, which, happened not too long ago in Rwanda.
And so that's the premise, right? If we don't honor the most vulnerable in our society, in this case, life in the womb, but we're also looking at euthanasia and assisted suicide as becoming more prevalent problems,
right,
we inevitably have a paradigm of complete dehumanization.
That's right.
Anyone
Absolutely.
who's other.
Anyone who's weaker than us, we can dehumanize. And I think that's what you're seeing today. And you see it in our political culture. You see it on social media. And I would argue, and I could debate anyone on this, it comes back to the issue of abortion.
And
because we've lost the point.
Yep.
I mean, this is the kids on campuses, right? The kids on campuses I talked to, the Pew research that came out last summer, this is the first youth generation in the history of their polling. Pew's like the gold standard of, religiosity polling and studies. It was the first time a youth generation polled under 50% self-identified Christian. And that's just self-identified, not living out, believing the actual tenets of the faith, right? If you have a generation that doesn't know who made them or why they were made, or that they have valued themselves, you've got a bigger problem than any other of these issues that we tend to takes up our social media feed.
There are parents listening right now, and many of them have children who've essentially left the faith. In about a minute, can you please speak to why this is a crucial conversation to be had with their young children from a young age? Starting
at your child's youngest, you have to be very clear that they were made for a purpose, by purpose. And who made them. That is number one with all of your children, no matter their age. You have to talk to them about abortion. I know we have a lot of Christian parents that don't want to talk about sex or talk about abortion. And you can do it in an age-appropriate way. But my children knew at 8 years old, abortion's when a mommy is scared. A mommy doesn't know how she's going to help her baby, and she pays someone to kill her baby. And you tell that to an 8-year-old, their face transforms. They're like, what? Why would anyone do this? But you have to tell them, because there's literally an entire culture, there's school systems they are bent on telling your kids. I mean,
My guest has been Kristan Hawkins, president of Students for Life, and she is one of the strongest voices at the forefront of fighting for children in the womb and also educating the next generation about how to think rightly about this issue. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.